Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Leadership in the Digital Age. My name is Harrison. I am one of your hosts for today, and joining me is Victoria. Welcome, Victoria.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Victoria. I'm the CEO of the GoZone Group, and we're excited to talk about leadership in the digital age.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm the co-founder of Gold Zone Group. We are a small group of companies. We have a medical clinic, a wellness center, a software company, an investment company. What else do we have? Publishing. But our favorite
Technology.
project Yes. Our favorite project is our Leadership Center. And what we do with the Leadership Center is we combine personal development with professional development with business development. So we combine the best of all three because we find that that's where the magic is, in the convergence of the three. Because, hey, how do you have great leadership if you suck as a person? How are you going to grow your business or your organization without leadership? And today's subject is about leadership in the digital age. And what's different about this today is that, if you go to Google and you look at leadership and you look at the books available and the conversations online, there's a million and one theories about leadership. Everybody wants to be the market leader. Everybody wants to be the individual leader. And yet, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, today we're going to talk about what has changed with leadership. This is not your granddaddy's leadership. This is how to lead and how to win in the digital age, which is very different. And we'll talk about how different it is. Right, Victoria?
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Yes, definitely. I mean, it's like if everyone is talking about leadership, why is this different? And we'll dive more into it. And feel free to ask any questions or comments and to clarify things. We're happy to address anything within a time frame. 1 hour is very short. There's so much that we can talk about, so we might not be able to cover everything, but we'll do our best.
Yes, very good. So let's talk about it from a bigger picture point of view. One of the biggest challenges people have who have been leaders for a while is that they think they know. And it's right, you do know, and you have experience, and you've succeeded in the past. The problem is, what it takes to succeed in the future is not what it took you to succeed in the past. So we have to unlearn a lot of our old leadership know-how, our old leadership ways of being, and adopt something new. And it's a completely different paradigm. And I got to tell you, I'm nearly 60. And I tell you, in my generation, I'm in the X generation, and it is hard making changes when what we've done has worked for us for so long. Then suddenly the game changes. It's like the ground has become liquid and we have to do things different. You find that too, Victoria?
Yes, many changes, and it's the pace of change is getting faster and faster. You gotta keep up with it. You are learning every day. You are seeing how other people are doing it, and yeah, it's not easy. I think it's not easy even for the younger generation. Not to mention, our generation who are in the Gen X, we're so used to a certain way of doing things. Like the other day, I was just posting about coming from a sales background, right? I used to be very ingrained into the law of large number phenomena where as long as you reach out to enough people, you should be able to get some results. But these days, the formula has changed. And, if the law of large number will have people struggle.
That's a good point, Victoria. What's the equivalent in terms of leadership of the law of large numbers? Because for those who don't know it, it's a volume game, right? Law of
Yeah,
large numbers. If you just
correct.
kiss enough frogs, you'll find a prince or princess.
Or you throw enough spaghetti on the wall, some will stick, but you don't know which one will stick. And it's very frustrating and it's a lot of work for very little results.
So today, how's leadership different? If the law of large numbers isn't work anymore, what's the equivalent?
I would say that leadership, for most of us, right, we are very familiar with the domination game where someone dominate in certain area. And from a company point of view, when you have the position and title, you can use the position, title, or status to tell people what to do. But people are getting more sophisticated. They don't want just to be. They don't want to be just told. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to feel more engaged in the work that they are doing. And if you just tell them what to do without any reason or without helping them to understand what's in it for them, your level, your ability to influence them will be limited.
So what you're saying is we have to influence people in a different way.
Yes.
So in the law of large numbers, from a sales point of view, it's about activity and kissing frogs. So from a leadership point of view, we want people to be influenced by us, to be engaged with us, and we need to lead by example. We need to be an example of what we want others to do.
Yes.
And how this plays out today is that many of us are working either hybrid or we're working remotely, and there's less people working in the office. And it's interesting which companies want people to be back in the office. Because why do we need to be in the office? If we're working on our computers most of the time, our computers and our smartphones, why do we need to be in physically the same location?
Yeah.
So they say it's because of teamwork, because of water cooler conversations.
Social
But is it
connection.
really feeling connection? Yes.
Social connection with your colleagues.
Right.
Yeah.
But is the real reason the companies want people under the same roof so they can keep an eye on them? Because that old model of, I have to know what you're doing. I have to see that you're working.
Yeah.
And if you're remote at home, I don't know if you're working or if you're doing 3 jobs or if you're sitting on the beach or sleeping on the couch.
Yes, agree. I think it's more of a control thing than it's not. The social connection, I think, is very real. A lot of people, when they work from home, they might not be able to meet their needs compared to if they work in an office with colleagues. So I think a combination of both is important. Just on a side note, sorry, Harrison,
Yeah.
just on a side note, Badger asked if if he asked some question along the way, feel free to do it. Feel free to ask any questions, comment on anything, or add to what we are discussing.
Yes, one of the good things of typing a question or a comment in the chat is that if we don't see it live in the session, we can go back after the session is over. The recording is posted at the same address, and we can also answer some of the questions in the chat if we don't pick them up live. So that's quite good, isn't it?
Yep, agree. So back to what we were discussing.
So in the old days, people used to show up for work because they needed something to do to make money. So they would make money with their work. They would go home. They would do more 9 to 5 was more typical. They would go home. They would go to their religious institution for their spiritual connection. They would have their local community for their community connection. They would have their friends. They would have their family. So all these areas were separate in the old days. And when is the old days exactly? Because in today's reality, people want more from the work than just money. People want some kind of spiritual meaning, some kind of purpose, some kind of mission. They want to align with the mission of the organization and feel good about what they're doing.
Yep.
So how you lead people in that context is very different than the ones who are there for the paycheck, for the income, for the money.
Yes. Well, even when people are buying services and products, they want to be part of something that's aligned with their values. So when people pay money for things, it's the game has changed. It's not just, and I know there's a lot of functional product and services which cater to the majority. At the same time, people are also wanting to put their money where their heart is. Whether it's investing, whether it's buying services or products, whether it's joining a company, I think it's all in line with the future.
So, Victoria, this need to align values with what you buy or where you work, do you think the boomers and the X generation cared as much about that? Or do you think that it's the younger generation, the Z and the millennials who care more about that?
In my experience, I think the millennial and younger generation care more about that because it's a very different focus, like you mentioned, paradigm. And I'm not sure whether everybody well, actually, I shouldn't say I'm not sure. I think most of us, when we look at paradigm, we don't even have the same definition of paradigm. So being born from in the 70s, and then the millennia 80s, and then followed by 90s, and obviously the younger generation, the focus is very different, the paradigm is different, and that's why the changes are not necessary for us to keep up with the new way of thinking, the new way of doing things, and to be able to understand. We talked about this in one of our session previously, to be able to understand what each other want and to be able to give each other what we want.
And how does this, Victoria, relate to the hybrid work environment or people working 100% remotely? How does it apply? Because it seems to me, you go ahead and answer that question, and then I'll answer it. Go ahead.
So I feel that with the younger generation, they want more freedom and flexibility, and that they don't want to be bound by a 9 to 5 rigidity where they have to do things a certain way. And yeah, so they feel like they don't want to be controlled. So that's why the hybrid and remote is much better. They want that more. And from a company point of view, I can understand, because you really don't know what people are doing when they are at home. That's the problem, right? And I would say that having a system to put in place to be able to help people produce results, it doesn't matter whether they are fully working from 9 to 5 or not, as long as they deliver the value they are exchanging for the income, for the salary.
So what you're saying is the focus should go away from hours for dollars and how many hours you work to the result that you're producing.
Correct.
And this is a challenge from a leadership point of view, because how do you measure the results? Because we know from our own experience that people are resistant to having their output measured, to their results being the thing that their value is accounted for in that fashion. So they're kind of resistant. So how does someone remotely do that? And I have an answer. I think this is what's different, is that if somebody's hearts, minds, and souls are engaged with what you're doing, in other words, you have a dream team member who loves the work that you do, they're inspired by your vision, they're aligned with your values, they're passionate about the work, then you don't have to be looking over their shoulder for how many hours they work. They're going to be doing it naturally. And you can tell who those people are because they have passion for what they're doing. You can measure the passion, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And when these people are working remotely, you have them working on a project basis. And so everything is done project to project. Now, 20 years ago, we used to predict that all work would become project work in the future, because when you're working on a project, it's regardless of where you are, who you're working with, the team will come together for the project. And then when the project's complete, the team's complete, and then you form a new team for a new project. And because everybody's into the alignment with the values and the vision, then it's easy. Whereas the problem with the old style is it's not like that.
Task-based.
It's different. So how do you motivate somebody if they're working 9 to 5 and you never see them and you don't know whether they're producing or not?
I think the old style is more task-oriented, whereas the new style is more vision and engagement-oriented. I think I wanted to bring up a question, Harrison. I don't know if you can bring that question up on the screen. Baggio asked, I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly, Baggio, right? Which aspect of trying to make a workplace that caters to a lot of their needs is the hardest in our opinion? Cater to which needs specifically, Baggio, if you can add to the comment?
Well, we're talking about needs for alignment with values and vision and our needs for fulfillment and meaning. I assume you're talking about that. Which is hardest about that? I think, Victoria, the hardest part of that is that the leader has to lead by example. And we can't be telling people and giving advice. And that's the old style of leadership, is that the leader sees themselves as the wise old sage telling everybody their infinite wisdom. And it's a problem because the older we get, the more we want to give advice and the more we want to share all our experiences with everybody.
It's
And no one cares. They're all, oh, here he goes again, that old guy, you know.
I
Oh,
want to
yawn,
say,
yawn.
I want to say we have a Chinese saying for that.
Oh, please tell us your Chinese saying for that. What is it? We love. How about you all? You know, I love to hear Victoria's
Those-
Chinese saying. She had so many of them. They come up just, you know, spontaneously, these Chinese saying. I don't know where she gets them from. Go on, what is it?
So the older generation like to say to us, well, as if we are young, right? We're not that young too. Sometimes, honestly, sometimes I feel like saying that to my kids too. Do you know how much salt I've eaten? I've eaten more salt than the amount of rice that you have eaten. Which, you know, 我吃的盐比你吃的米多. It's just funny because it is a very common saying, and so I eat more salt than you eaten than the amount of rice that you have eaten. So that's a little bit of a leaching out our supposedly wisdom, right?
So an example of how this doesn't work is on LinkedIn. The experienced leader with years of, you know, practical, excuse me, he or she has been around, done that, and they want to share with everybody their infinite wisdom, and nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Nobody cares. Nobody engages. They don't want advice. Whereas sharing a personal story that has meaning and connection, it bypasses all the filters. And that personal story where you share the journey, you share the challenges, the struggles, and the emotions involved, and then you overcame it how, and then what you learned from it. This is what people want. That style of leading, because we're talking about how to post on LinkedIn and have more than one person like it, right? So having those stories bypass the paradigms and the filters, the older generation, the older style of sharing their infinite wisdom, find it very difficult to express and communicate in that way. And that is a great analogy for the challenge with leadership.
Yeah. Because it's not just on LinkedIn, it's everywhere. And I'm sorry to say that people really roll their eye even though it's not in front of you. Like we have clients who told us they roll their eye on their bosses. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And it's so common, it's not even funny.
It's so rude and disrespectful.
Yeah,
And, you know,
yeah.
sadly, if you're the leader who people are rolling their eyes on you, they're probably doing it where you can't see it.
Yeah.
But they feel that way.
Yes.
So why do you think this old style of leadership is so different? Because digital age leadership is more personal. You share your stories, but it's not all about you, because if your story is me, people are gone to sleep already and they think you're a narcissist. And so sharing your story with the journey you went on, the challenges you had, the learnings you got at the end of it, and how you overcame it, this is so valuable because then we can all relate to each other.
Yeah.
So this style of leadership is very emotional. It's very personal. It's
real.
very, what's that?
It's real. It's not putting oneself above other people.
Okay. So it's inclusive of other people, and it's real, and it's connecting. And this is how leadership in the digital age works.
Yeah.
And that's the skill that we all need to learn, instead of looking like we got it all together.
Yeah.
That we can share our journey, our process, our challenges. And
yes.
So the old style, Victoria, what would you say is the number one challenge to the old style of leaders or leadership opening up and doing it that way?
I think from our generation point of view, maybe it's not just our generation, I would say in general, but mostly the older generation do have a hard time opening up and be vulnerable. We are very used to growing up, right? It's like, don't be, if we, even though we still whine and complain, but we are a lot of time we are being the hard work, ethics, and also it's normal to put up with stuff. It's normal to put up with just do it. Stop complaining. Um, it looks like you're weak if you complain about what you don't like, and suck it up, basically. So we are more used to, and obviously, we are a lot of us were being beaten by our parents, right? Discipline into listening to them. And so those are the things that I would say it has its pros and cons. It's not 100% bad, but it has its detrimental negative impact. So on one hand, we are quite hard knock, and we tend to do put up with things. We tend to, it doesn't matter how we feel, we will still go and do, we'll still get work done. Whereas the newer generation, they are the culture and the society has been less tolerant of that kind of discipline. And we are more into communication, explaining things, being more encouraging, and this physical discipline is less encouraged.
So you're saying that the older generation find vulnerability as a weakness. So vulnerability might be talking about your feelings or your emotions.
Yes, it looks like a weakness.
It looks like a weakness. So if you share that you had any kind of doubt, or last week in the session we were talking about how fear of rejection stops so many people, and that this fear of rejection, if you have it, then you don't want to admit that that's what's stopping you, so you'll cover it up and have all these behaviors that make it look like it's something else. And in leadership in the digital age, it's about sharing that is what the problem is. That's the emotion. Like it's about sharing in the workplace more of these vulnerable things, because then there's someone who can help you with it, and having a conversation can lead to a breakthrough in that area. Because why would you put up with a fear of rejection? And I was thinking about this since last week's session, how much fear of rejection stops people. It stops them from leading. It stops them from engaging with people, sharing value, adding value, sharing their stories, this fear that they're going to be rejected. And this is the thought that came to me, Victoria, is that a fear of rejection begins with rejecting yourself.
Yep.
So if you reject yourself, then you're going to worry other people are going to reject you. So the antidote to a fear of rejection, for those of you who are with us today, who were there last week, the antidote for fear of rejection is self-acceptance. It's to accept yourself in the way that you are, with your stutters, with your improper English, with your lack of comprehension, with your big ass, short height, fat thighs, bald head, no boobs, big boobs, whatever it is that you have that you judge as a weakness. It's about accepting that. And if you can change it, you can do something about it if it's important enough to you. But if it's something you can't change, why bother rejecting yourself over something you can't change? For example, if you're a short person and you judge yourself for that, then you can't do anything about that. So you might as well accept yourself and look at all the positive attributes of being short and embrace it. Then you're not going into the world of leadership and business development or whatever you're doing, projecting this fear and then having a fear that other people will reject you because you're short, just as an example.
Yeah, agree. It's really the toughest part is to accept the part that we don't like about ourselves.
But isn't that the fast track, Victoria? Because the more comfortable you are in your skin, I am in mine, the more comfortable I'm with me, the more comfortable you will be with you, and you will be with me too. Then we can have a real conversation about what's in the way of this project that we're working on, or whatever it is that the leadership shows up.
The interesting thing is that the more comfortable I am with myself, the more comfortable other people are with me. But the less comfortable I am with myself, the less comfortable other people are with me.
So that's the fast track, isn't it? Is to get comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
And isn't that the new digital age leadership? is leadership in the digital age is about being comfortable with yourself? Because what is digital anyway? Digital is an enabler to speed us up, to get things done in less time, to leverage, to amplify our voice, to communicate and connect with more people.
Yeah, agree. Yes. Well, in order to connect, you got to be able to be true connection come from being able to be yourself. If I can't be and to be comfortable with ourselves. If I can't be comfortable with myself, I can't connect with people comfortably. And that's what creates safety actually. And like psychological safety takes quite a bit of self-acceptance. Harrison, we
And
have a
go ahead.
Badger ask us what's the most bittersweet moment we both have as leaders after being leaders for, well, he said 30 years. So 30 years is more, Harrison. Mine is less than that. Please, this one, I'm going to tell everyone our age.
What's the most bittersweet moment? Oh man, I don't know how to answer that off the top of my head.
It's too long list.
It's a long bittersweet, where it's sweet but it's bitter. I don't know. Nothing springs to my mind in terms of bittersweet. But
I have.
go ahead.
Well, I would say that the bittersweet moment is when you have certain for me, I have certain expectation, especially when I'm excited and enthusiastic and clear about the people I want to work with. But when the expectation and the reality become different, and I'm wrong about I'm wrong about them, I feel disappointed, and it can be very, for me, it was quite an emotional process.
So you're saying hiring a team that you had high hopes for, it was sweet, and you're excited, and then it had a bitter ending.
Well, yes, because of the mismatch of expectation between both parties.
Yeah.
It's not, because it's not like, I'm not talking about you just hiring someone to do a job, because that is just transaction. We're talking about building a dream together, building something exciting together. And when the expectation is different and I'm wrong about the expectation, it's not as easy to get through.
So you're saying that your most bittersweet comes from the team side of business. It's the team and the people side that is the most sweetest, and it can be the bitterest. I would echo that from my experience, is that all the partners and clients and team members and vendors and all these different people and relationships over the years, they have been the sweetest part of business, and it makes business fun as all the people we meet along the way and the relationships we develop. On the other hand, it's the betrayal of close friends. It's people stealing from you, people sabotaging you and saying things about, like for me, saying things about me that weren't true. And then all this dynamic that plays out with professional jealousy, and, this stuff is difficult. And I mean, we could fill up a whole day talking about all the experiences we've had around that. And I don't see a lot of conversation in the world about some of the negative side, because one of the challenges with this leadership in the digital age is that there's a bias towards super positive, and everybody wants to be positive. And then we have the victims on the other side telling all their victim stories. And then to be able to give voice to your experiences of the negative side, the mistakes that I've made personally, and then some of the toughest lessons. And it's not losing money or having money stolen that is the most difficult to take. It's the trust, the loss of trust. But it's not trust in other people. It's trust in myself, that I trusted someone who then betrayed my trust, not just once, but multiple times. And then to try and be a good person and give people a chance to make it right, or to turn it around, or whatever, right?
Yeah. It is true, it's all about trusting other people. It's trusting in our own ability to choose differently next time, to not give up, to still carry on, to be able to not give up because of one or two unsuccessful incident, and to carry on because we have a vision that we are working towards.
Hey, there's another question here. That's an interesting one from Christoph. Hey, Christoph, happy to see you here. And, he and I got in a conversation about Ashawara Roy and Bollywood stuff. It's fun. So here he's asking, how do we connect and engage in the digital age with millennials who, they're a bit different. Which social media or best communication channel?
I think.
What's your thought, Victoria?
Personally, from a channel, I'm just looking at the question. I'm not a millennial, but I like WhatsApp, and WhatsApp seems to work very well in Asia. Like, people love to WhatsApp. They don't even use their phone. Sometimes when we call people, right? If you call them on a normal number, they don't use that service. But if you call them using the same number on WhatsApp, they will answer. But technically, I think a lot of younger generation prefer to text. I'm not sure about email. Yeah.
People, I think, picking up on that, Victoria, they don't like email.
They don't like
they
email.
They specifically dislike email.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, WhatsApp, they like WhatsApp, and then Instagram, chatting and texting on Instagram.
Yeah, correct.
And of course, TikTok for the younger people.
Yes. Yeah.
I confess I have a TikTok account, but haven't got to it yet. But it's a necessary thing, isn't it, Victoria? Yep. Soon Victoria will be on TikTok. Got to take the show on the road.
That's definitely a challenge. We also have another question. Did we answer your question, Christoph?
I think you sometimes did by starting with texting, because that's something I notice. No voicemail, no email, but texting. Everybody wants to text.
We have another question from Noel Peng. What are the key strategies for effectively leading and empowering teams in the digital age, where remote work, rapid technology advancements, and evolving market dynamics demand agile and innovative leadership approaches? There's a few questions. There's a few keys in your question. Harrison, would you like to go first?
I'm trying to find where that question is so I can put it on the screen.
Noel Peng.
The big Q here, what are the key strategies?
That's right.
That one?
That's right.
With remote work, rapid technological advancement, and evolving market dynamics. I think it goes back to talking about feelings and emotions and how we feel about things. That's how we connect as humans. And sitting around the campfire, having conversations socially is where a lot of connection happens. So how do we replicate that digitally? What we do as an organization is that at the start of every internal meeting is that we have this little process where people share what's going on for them in a short form. We call it a what I feel like saying. So the meeting begins with a feel like saying, then you have the content of the meeting, and then you wrap up with a feel like saying. In the beginning, people are uncomfortable with it until they get used to this kind of open sharing culture where you can just talk about what's going on with you, because people are not present. We have so many things going on. We're distracted by 1,000,001 different things. And being present means that we're not thinking about anything else. We're just here for what we are doing now. And if we're distracted, our productivity goes down. And when we're focused and present, the productivity goes up. So we find that having these at the beginning and the end of meetings, it makes it much easier to talk about the business stuff where we know where everybody's at. Give you an example. Let's say somebody has a favorite pet and they just passed away yesterday. And for a lot of people, their pets are like family members. So that person might show up to a meeting today, but they might not be themselves. And you might think that they're not themselves because there's something going on in the agenda or on the project, and you don't realize that it's something personal going on at home. So if you do this kind of personal alignment in the beginning of the meeting, they share that with everybody, then everybody knows, oh, okay, this is where they're at. And then you end up with two-way empathy, and then you have more productive meetings. And I think this is the key to working remotely. We've done it for years, in the beginning with teleconference, and then a long time ago, right? Teleconference, and then on video with Skype, and then with, we used to use Ring Central, and then now with Zoom. And then these sort of tools, you can do the same kind of thing, real people connecting. And because we do leadership training and coaching and whatnot as part of our leadership center, we do a lot of educational events. And of course, we prefer in person. There's some magic that happens when you all get together in person.
Yeah.
But you can do the digital ones where there are close follow-up, and you can have the same kind of connection digitally if you lead by example and set that kind of context that it's okay to share personal, professional. Obviously, you got to get the job done. It's not about sitting around talking about feelings all day. Who wants to do that?
Yeah. Nope. I think the ultimate goal is really to have everyone engage in their work, and they feel like they belong to something. They belong to something bigger than themselves, and that is aligned to their own values and their vision. And you don't have to force them to do their job when that happens. And also create a safe environment where if people don't know what they are doing, or they need help, they can come to you for help. Because a lot of people actually asking for help is not easy for a lot of people.
Actually, most people don't like asking for help. Isn't that a sign of weakness if you need help? That being strong means that you should be able to do it on your own?
Yes. Exactly. And we
So
have this client.
Victoria, why is asking for help not a weakness?
Oh, asking for help is like, to me, asking for help means you are interested in doing something about what you don't know. I think it's a strength. If you want help to get something done, how is that a weakness? If you can acknowledge, and it also is a symptom, is a sign of someone's confidence, because actually the people who are able to ask for help are the people who are more confident in themselves. They are not worried about how people see them when they ask for help.
Right. So if you try and do it on your own, then you can struggle for a long time to find the answer. But why would you do that if someone has already solved that problem? You can go to someone, have a 5-minute conversation, and they can share with you what they did, and it can save you hours and hours of struggle trying to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
So isn't that a sign, like you said, a sign of confidence that you can reach out to someone?
Yeah. Because a lot of people, I would say that in the past, before I had this understanding, I used to, if I were to talk to someone, this is not 100% asking for help, but it's just an example of how it felt like when I wasn't that confident in myself. And if I have an interaction with someone, and if I don't understand what they are saying, I don't clarify. I just go blank and worry about what would that person think of me if I were to tell them I actually don't understand what they're saying. And what that does is that instead of without clarifying, they lost me, and there's no real connection in the whole interaction.
So no connection when you don't speak up?
Yes, correct.
So how do you get people to speak up remotely?
You got to check in and see if everything is okay. Check on, whether, I think checking in without I know a lot of people talk about micromanaging, right? But checking in is not micromanaging. How you doing? And having, like you say just now, we have a system that help us to have a short session with team member to do what I feel like saying. And from what they share, you have some idea. You have this safety for them to share what's going on with them at the present time. And through what they share, you have an idea of what's going on with them, whether they are having a problem or not.
Okay, so what you're talking about is instead of checking on how the project's going or the job is going, you check on how the person is doing.
Correct.
So if you check in with the person, obviously if the project's going well, they're gonna be doing well. And if
Yeah.
the project's struggling and not going well, they're not doing well. So checking on them is a proxy for the project. But if you check on the project, you might get a different answer and not really find out what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think this leads to a conversation about alignment, in that digital age needs more alignment. And working in person in the old style of things, you have less alignment. And I believe the faster you go, the faster the rate of change, the faster the pressure increases, the more alignment you need. And
Yes.
how alignment works is that you're aligning on the values, the vision, but particularly the vision. Because if you're in agreement on the vision and you all share the same picture of what the result looks like in the end, then you're all working towards the same thing. So alignment means that you're making adjustments to go closer and closer to that vision. And it's a bit like having a shower. You know, if you had a shower once a month, you're going to be smelly. If you have a shower once a week, well, English people, my father was English, right? He would shower once a week. That seemed to be an English thing from his generation. And, you know, so once a week in terms of alignment is not enough. So a weekly meeting's not enough. And if the project is really intense, really important, mission critical, once a day is not enough. You have to do these alignments, micro alignments, multiple times a day to just, you know, stay on the same direction. And you could call that, like Buckminster Fuller would talk about trim tab, and that the trim tab, always doing a trim tab to keep, you know, like minor adjustments, keep the ship going in the right direction. And I think digital leadership requires that versus, you know, once a month, once a week, or imagine once a quarter. How do you do that?
You can't. It's just you know, by the time you regroup again, you got to restart from scratch. You can't even measure the progress.
So today, Victoria, you were talking about speed, and one of the things that you love about Singapore is how everything's fast, and then you can get addicted to fast. And isn't that what digital's all about? Everything's at your fingertips, fast, fast, fast. And then people get angry with you if you take a day to reply to their text. They expect that you're going to reply immediately. And that's why it's instant messaging. It's a text message. Come on, give me a quick reply now. And that's more of the work culture with digital thinking now, isn't it?
Yeah, agree. It's funny, today I was just saying to my 8-year-old, she asked me something, I said, just go Google it. I can't remember what she asked me. And when my 6-year-old asked, what's Google? I said, can you explain to her what's Google? Because I was getting ready for work.
And they're more used to using Siri to ask, aren't they?
Yeah.
Hey, Siri, what about this? Hey, Siri, what about that? And that's a different way of working, isn't it?
Yeah. Agree. And I wanted to, yeah.
Go ahead, Victoria.
So just on Christoph's question, I thought Jean brought up a good point, which I thought about it, but you know, in the midst of everything, I didn't mention. Jean added to Christoph's question that there's a lot of technology that can use to enhance communication tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Trello, and all that, which I thought, yeah, project management tools that can help in more teamwork.
One of the downsides with all these tools is that as we introduce more tools to the workplace, there's more to learn.
Yes.
And then we get overwhelmed with the amount of software.
Yes.
Yeah, the software learning can be overwhelming. And then if the software is created by an engineer, even worse. It's horrible. It works like an engineer thinks. And the best software is created by users, not engineers. And I have an engineering background, for those of you who don't know me. So engineering thinking, you know, design is hard to use.
Well,
and that's go ahead.
I wanted, yes, they are supposed to make our life easier, to put in the minimum effort to, you know, have the communication or a systematic way to work together as a team. But the tools on its own, without what you shared just now, where we have alignment, where the alignment is, if there's no alignment, the tools will have its limited usage too.
Right. Exactly. And if you're on a text message stream that's shared by too many people, there's too many messages, and then that becomes overwhelming. How do you align with that? So there's an optimum number of team members where you don't get overwhelmed with the updates, you don't get overwhelmed with the messages, and then what is shared is relevant to you. And I think that relevance and engagement are two things to think about. If there's too many people on the chat or in the group or in the meeting or whatnot, that it's too overwhelming. So there's an optimum number.
Yes,
And
agreed.
I'll tell you something interesting, Victoria. I don't think you know this. You know that I hired Amy Edmondson, the professor from Harvard, who came up with the term. She popularized the psychological safety term. So a lot of people are familiar with her. She was one of the speakers at an event that I organized many, many years ago. And she was sharing principles of Buckminster Fuller on optimum team size. And she had these models that were strung together with string made of styrofoam balls. And these styrofoam balls, we connected them with one string to demonstrate one person, you have maximum freedom. You can swing the ball around. And then when you have a partner, you have two people holding the string with the ball in the middle. Then you are on one dimension, you're limited to, you can rotate like this. And then as you add 3 strings to the ball, 4 strings, but the stability comes in optimally with 5. So she said that when you track these models, that 5 is the optimum number of people on a team. And I thought this is a very interesting thing that most people aren't aware of, that if you have too many or too few, like with 4 people, you can have 2 camps, 2 camps of 2, and then you can be at an impasse. But with 5, you have a tiebreaker. And this physical model that leads to stability is a very interesting way of looking at team size. So if you have 5 at a meeting, you have a better meeting than if you have 10 or 20.
Interesting.
And then the faster you go, the more optimal team size, communication size, the more optimal you need. And then, all the people who are waffling and don't get to the point, wasting everybody's time. And if you have alignment with the team and a high level of trust, people can tell each other directly. Feedback that if you don't know each other might be offensive. Like, can you hurry up, get to the point?
Like
you can
this.
say that to people. Yeah, like this. Can you wrap it up? Come on, you're talking too much.
Yes.
Actually, you should try that with me because I can talk too much sometimes. You can do this and we can have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah, I think I wanted to, just on that, right? Bajo was talking about it's important, when it comes to team meeting and all that, balance between getting job done, being their therapist, because we talk about having meeting and all that. And I want to say to that no, as a leader, we are not their therapist. We are not supposed to be their therapist. Our job is to help them get a job done by understanding what's going on with them. How can we help them bridge the gap? And the therapist's job, let's leave to the therapist.
Yes. And if everybody has a coach, which we believe everybody needs a coach, your coach can fill in that gap of the personal adjustments and for people to take ownership and responsibility of delivering the result they've committed to. So having a coach, a performance coach, helps everybody. Then the leader and the team members are not having to do that therapy role because nobody wants to do therapy. And the downside is that some people really enjoy the attention and like to complain and whine, and they get more value from doing that than they do making money and growing business, don't they?
Yes, exactly. And the more you listen to them, the more they go on and on. So essentially, over listening to someone like that, you give them an incentive to not perform.
Been there, done that. We've tested all these different things out, haven't we, Victoria?
That's another bittersweet. Okay, Badger, that's another bittersweet lesson I had. Over listening and then feeling frustrated that I don't get what I want from them.
Hey, I want to talk about something off the wall, Victoria. People who will fly business class when the company's paying, they will do training when the companies pay for it. They will have a coach when the company's paying for it, but they won't pay for it themselves. And I think if you invest in your career, if you're vested in expanding your career, in making more money, in having advancement, then you should be investing in yourself. Why wait for the company to pay for it? But that's what a lot of people do. They will fly business class if the company pays, but when they're paying, they're on the cheapest economy ticket. And I think there's a problem with that, because if it's acceptable to you to be on the cheapest economy ticket, the company should be doing that, putting you on the cheapest, if that's what you are happy with. And if you want to be a business class or first class employee or team member, you should be willing to pay for it.
Well, what
Then
you're
you're going to have, what's that?
Sorry. No, I wanted to say what you're saying is that we got to value ourselves and not wait for, because the biggest complaint that most people have is that I'm not valued by my employer, my partner, my this and my that. But how much do we value ourselves?
That's right. And if we're talking about here alignment on teams and leadership in the digital age and communication, why are we so dependent on the company paying for our training? Why should the company pay to train us? Why should the company pay for a leadership coach? Why should the company pay for any kind of training? Why don't we do it ourselves? Then we're not dependent on the company's schedule or the company's agenda. We can invest in ourselves, invest in our knowledge, and it'll pay off in a lifetime.
Yep.
Like the ability to speak, to communicate, to lead. These are investments in me. Why do I need someone else to pay for it? I should be the first person to pony up for that, because my return on investment, over 30 years is exceptionally good.
Absolutely. Well, that's why Warren Buffett was willing to pay extra 50,000 for people who were willing to invest in themselves to get a 10% return on their lifetime income. I can't remember how long, 20 years lifetime. Clearly, it's worth it, right? If someone is willing to invest in themselves, he's going to give them in advance 50,000.
Well, if you think about this, Victoria, if a person's willing to invest in themselves, then you as a business leader will invest more in them, because they're already leading you, aren't they? Whereas if they won't invest in themselves, they're cheap and they're miserable and they want to pay as little as possible and get as much as possible. Who wants to be on a team with someone like that? Because that behavior is going to show up in their level of generosity, in their level of giving, in their level of support of other people, in their level of opening up. And this is the thing about the digital age, right? And the style of leadership, being open and giving of yourself. When you share your experiences, your hopes, your dreams, your challenges, your failures, and how you overcame them, you're giving of yourself, you're giving emotionally. And that's the emotional engagement that's missing digitally, and why people are so attached to being in person all the time, because they struggle to connect emotionally. But when you are emotionally connected to yourself and to the people around you, digital, in person, on the telephone, you feel the same level of connection.
It's true. 100%.
So then isn't the thing that people need is emotional connection? We need to learn the language of emotion, because it's different from the language of our heads, where we talk mentally, where we talk scientifically, where we use all those big terms and the nomenclature from a particular field, the language of finance, etc., or the language of accounting.
Yeah.
What about the language of emotion that begins with I feel? And that's the vulnerable thing that people don't want to share how they feel, but that's the only thing that we connect with. And that's the competitive advantage that we have in today's world, is the emotional engagement.
Yep.
It's our engagement with brands is emotional.
Yep.
We buy from a brand because we have an emotional connection to the brand. And I'll give you one example, real simple, is I have this small red Pixie Nespresso machine. And over the years, I've bought 3 of them. I used to have 2 that I would travel with back in the days when there wasn't espresso commonly available, right? I would take them with me, these red Pixies. I had one for American plug and one for the European plug. So I would, depending on where I was going, I'd take my own Pixie, because I wanted decent coffee wherever I went. And I know some people think it's awful coffee, but I like ristretto from a Nespresso. I managed to get the proportions right, so it works well. It's portable and everything. So I have an emotional connection to a Nespresso Pixie because of how I first was introduced to the brand and something that happened to me that connected me to it to this day. It's been, I don't know, 20 years, 15 years, something like this. I've maintained that emotional connection. So if we can emotionally connect with each other and we can emotionally engage as a team, as a leader, then we will transcend all the different challenges because we're going through it together. It's not something that you have to do alone, isn't it, Victoria?
Yeah. Yes. Doing it together is more fun. Well, more fun and more easier to get through challenges when you have each other's back.
Isn't that the same with this digital session, Victoria? Because here we are, we're able to bounce off each other. I'm able to pass the ball to you. You can pick it up and then you can share and then you can ask me a question. I can ask you a question. You can read the messages and back and forth. And this makes it easier to do it as a team.
Yeah. Agree. And I think I just want to add to what you're saying about emotional connection. And, on LinkedIn, right? That's what I noticed the people who are the most successful are the people who can move digitally. You can through your story or through your sharing, you can move people emotionally, whether it's helping them with tips and ideas to help them with what they want, or you share a story that's relatable, and they are all emotional connection. And I saw someone, I can't remember who was that, but he posted something that was that I thought he used a trunk sharing. When you're sharing things that are more impactful, uh, it actually leave people more impact, and the impact comes from us feeling emotionally connected to what the other person is sharing, and rather than just the surface stuff that when you read it, it's entertaining, but it doesn't leave a real impact. People forget after 2-3 minutes.
Right. So the emotional impact lasts longer. It transcends the moment. And it's something
Yes,
that you remember for a long time. I think
correct.
for your LinkedIn posting, Victoria, you've done a really great job of sharing yourself and your story and personalizing it and then sharing your lessons. You've developed quite a community of people who engage with you on all your different posts. But the way that you've been able to share yourself and to do it professionally, I think it's a great example for what we're talking about, leadership in the digital age, is that you share enough of yourself to be personal, and then you're sharing the journey and the lessons, and it's very real and relatable. And you've been posting daily for a few months now, and you do it every day. And I've seen you don't feel happy if you miss a day because of something else. And you're very happy when you manage to post every day. And coming up with content and ideas is not the challenge. It's picking one that people are going to resonate with.
Yeah, it's true. The content itself is not the yeah. I have a lot of things that I would like to post, but yes, to find something that I feel that is relatable, it's probably the more of a challenge than the rest.
So, in our final minutes here today, Victoria, about leadership in the digital age, what final thoughts would you like to share with everybody? What takeaway would you like them to take from the session that they can apply immediately?
Well, I guess the key is really to whether we are talking about influencing, engaging, alignment, and wanting people to say yes to you, because it's all about, from a leadership point of view, we want to get the job done. We want people to say yes to us. That's really the ultimate reason, right? As a leader, and if people don't say yes to us, it's like it doesn't mean anything. I can have the title, but I'm not getting anything done. And the key is really, I can't emphasize enough that understanding emotion and how you can move people emotionally is really the key. Because if I don't understand emotion, I won't understand what motivates people. One of the things I wanted to just add from the question about the bittersweet experience is that when it comes to expectation, everyone is motivated differently. for us, we have a system to help people understand the 7 levels of motivation, and that not everybody are motivated by cause. Not everybody are motivated by success. So it depends on what their motivation is. If we don't understand that, we'll have a harder time influencing them, and we will get disappointed. Or at least I speak for myself. I get disappointed if I'm wrong about my idea of where the other person is at, and I led ineffectively. So yeah, understanding motivation, understanding emotion, understanding people, and on the checking in part, right? It's not about checking. Yes, we want to make sure the job get done, but you brought up a good point, Harrison. It's about checking in on the person to see how we can help them to make their job easier. I think that's the other thing about being a leader in a digital age.
Well, when you check in on the person, Victoria, you care about them and they feel the caring. And if they care about getting the job done, you care about getting the job done, and it's people
Yes.
to do it. So you've got to care about the people first.
Yeah.
Because if people feel you don't care about them, why should they care about you or getting the job done?
Yeah. Yes, agree. And of course, yes, they need to know you care about them, because most people don't care about. Most people are more self-centered and self-obsessed. And it takes
Right.
one party to be willing to care for the other person, to lift them up so that they can see beyond themselves.
Right. Excellent. So if you want to connect with Victoria, you can follow her on LinkedIn there. And if you want to chat with her, you can send her a direct message. She loves to chat, and she loves texting too, by the way. And she also has this game plan session if you want to transform your leadership in the digital age and look at how you can combine more of your personal development, professional development, and business development together. You can set up a game plan session with Victoria where she'll step you through what's possible for you and how you can do it in the shortest amount of time. And you can find a link to that on Victoria's bio.
Yeah.
And that's it for today, Victoria. That's me.
Yes.
Over and out.
I
Your
also
final
want
thought?
to-
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah,
and
final
say,
thought is that if you want to comment further on this stream, please feel free, ask question, comment. Happy to reply to your comment on anything that we can help you with.
Awesome. Thank
And
you,
that's it for
everyone.
me.
Thank you for joining us. And then the last thing is next week. We'll be back live next Wednesday at the same time, 12, which is noon Singapore time on Wednesday. And next week's subject, well, we're going to discuss that and we'll announce it in the next day, what the subject is for next week. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey,
Over and out.
just one more thing. If you have any subject that you're interested in, you can DM us or you can comment on the stream, and then we can look into it. All
Awesome.
right. Bye.
Ciao. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining. See you later.
See you.